All right, so are you ready to really dig into this whole Upside app thing? I know a lot of you out there are wondering if it's actually worth the hype. And to be honest, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard some buzz, but is it real?
totally get it. And I think that's why we wanted to take a closer look at, what people are actually saying. So we're going to be diving into 3 YouTube reviews today.
So we've got Dollar Break's long-term experience, they've been using it for a while, and then Bob Sharp's got his 2-year take on things.
Right. And we even found Upside's own tutorial, just to see how they explain it
This
themselves.
transparency, right?
Exactly. We want to make sure we're looking at this from all sides.
So our mission for this deep dive is it actually possible to save some serious cash with this app on everyday stuff? Like when we're filling up the tank, grabbing groceries, or just grabbing a bite to eat.
Yeah, and I got to say, one thing that jumped out at me when I was looking at all 3 of these sources, even Upside themselves, was that they all emphasize how simple the app is to use.
Okay, simple is always good, but I'm all about the results, right? What's the catch?
Well, let's break it down.
Yeah.
You basically find offers on the app for places you're already going anyway.
Okay.
Then you claim them, and then when you go to pay, you just use your linked credit or debit card.
You have to link your card?
Yeah, you have to link a card, and then Upside does its thing. It confirms the purchase, and then bam, you get cash back.
Okay, so far so good, but how much are we actually talking here? Dollar Break mentioned making $200 in just a few months, mostly from gas. How is that even possible?
Right. That definitely caught my eye, too. So it sounds like they were using it back when gas prices were around $5 a gallon.
Yeah.
So that obviously helps.
Yeah, for sure.
But also, it seems like Dollar Break was really strategic about choosing gas stations with the highest cashback offers.
Interesting.
And they were also stacking their savings by combining Upside with other rewards programs.
Smart.
Yeah.
So it's not just about using Upside in isolation, but it's also about how you make it work with other things you're already doing.
Exactly. You got to think about the bigger picture.
Bob Sharp talked about this double dipping strategy too, right? Using a gas rewards card and Upside at the same time.
Oh, yeah. He's all about that double dipping. He was saying, why not maximize your savings if you can, right? He really hammered home how Upside can supercharge those existing saving strategies you already have.
Love it. Now, we keep mentioning gas, but is there a limit on how much cash back you can earn on each fill-up?
There is, actually. You can only get cash back on up to 50 gallons at a time.
50 gallons. So if you're driving one of those giant pickup trucks or something.
Right, or on a trailer.
Exactly. You might hit that limit.
Yeah, definitely something to keep in mind.
Now, what about those higher percentage cashback offers that Bob Sharp was talking about? He mentioned getting 10 to 15% back at some restaurants and grocery stores.
Yeah, those definitely sound tempting, right?
Yeah.
10-15% back, that's not insignificant. But all of the sources we looked at agreed that there just aren't as many participating restaurants, grocery stores, and convenience stores compared to gas stations.
Gotcha. So fewer options, but potentially higher percentages.
Exactly. It's kind of a trade-off.
So, okay, let's walk through this. Let's say I find an offer in the app that I like, and I hit claim. What happens next?
So then you just pay like you normally would with that linked card you set up earlier.
Okay.
Now, for gas purchases, it usually confirms automatically. No receipt needed.
Oh, that's nice.
But for restaurants, grocery stores, and those convenience stores, you'll probably have to upload a receipt.
Receipts. I feel like I'm always losing those.
I know, right? Always a pain.
Yeah.
But Dollar Break actually brought up a good point. He said, keep hold of those receipts until you see that the cashback is confirmed, just in case.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like a little safety net. And he did say that he had a couple of times where transactions were missing.
Oh, no.
But he said that Upside's customer support usually got things sorted out pretty quickly.
Okay, that's reassuring at least. So let's say you've been using the app. You've been racking up some cash back. How do you actually get your money?
Well, you've got options, which is always good. They have bank transfer, PayPal, or even gift cards if you prefer those.
Okay. Pretty standard stuff for these kinds of apps. Any other quirks about getting your cash out?
Well, one thing that I thought was interesting was this referral program they have. You actually get a bonus when your friends sign up and start using the app.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And as of December 2024, that bonus is 15 cents a gallon on their very first gas purchase.
Not bad.
But here's the real kicker. You also earn a penny back every time they buy gas after that.
Yeah.
Every single time they fill up.
Wait, so I earn every time they fill up. That's a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, it can definitely add up, especially if you've got friends who drive a lot.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty amazing. But here's the big question that's been on my mind this whole time. How is Upside making money? It almost feels too good to be true.
Yeah, That's a totally valid question.
Yeah.
It had me wondering too. But Bob Sharp actually did a really good job of breaking down their revenue streams in his video. And it seems like one of their main ways of making money is through commissions from businesses. So basically, they're getting paid for bringing in new customers.
Oh, so it's like a win-win. Businesses get more customers and we get cash back.
Exactly. That
Yeah.
seems to be the idea. And then their second revenue stream is good old-fashioned advertising revenue.
Yeah.
They make money from those businesses that want better placement in the app.
So like those sponsored posts you see all over social media?
Yep. Pretty much the same concept.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
But let's be real, no app is perfect,
Right.
right? What are some of the downsides we need to be thinking about here?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for a lot of people is probably that whole thing about linking your credit or debit cards. Not everyone's comfortable with that.
Yeah, totally understandable. I mean, it's your financial information, right?
Exactly. It's sensitive stuff.
Mhm.
So you really got to weigh the potential benefits against that. But one thing that really stood out to me is that Upside can actually work with other programs you might already be using, like those cashback credit cards, for example.
Oh, yeah, like I feel like everyone has one of those these days.
Right. Exactly. So it's not like you have to replace everything with Upside.
Right.
You can still use your favorite card for,
Yeah.
most of your purchases, but then strategically use Upside when it makes sense.
Right.
Like if you're at a gas station with a killer offer, why not take advantage? It's like an extra layer of savings on top of what you're already doing.
Okay, so it's less about ditching everything and more about being smart and opportunistic.
Right. It's about making your money work harder for you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of making money work harder, what about those referral bonuses? We talked about how you get like a penny back every time a friend fills up their tank.
Yeah,
That could really add up.
totally. And it's a great way to, kind of spread the word and help your friends and family save some money too. Everybody wins.
You know, it's funny, I was pretty skeptical about Upside at first, but the more we're digging into this, the more I'm starting to see like the real potential.
Yeah, it really comes down to figuring out how it fits into, your spending habits and your overall financial goals.
Right.
And, all those YouTube reviews were great for giving us a broad overview. But now I'm curious to know, what about your own experience? Have you actually tried
Yeah.
Upside yourself?
Well, I haven't yet. I was kind of waiting to get a better understanding of how it all worked, before I jumped in.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I gotta say, I'm feeling a lot more confident about it now.
Awesome. Well, if you do decide to give it a shot, I would say start by, poking around the app and seeing what kind of offers are in your area, see what's out there.
Okay.
And definitely make sure you check for those high percentage cashback deals,
Hmm.
especially for restaurants and grocery stores if those are things you spend money on regularly.
What about notifications? Should I enable those so I don't miss out on any like limited time offers or bonos?
Oh, yeah. Good point. You can actually customize the app to send you alerts when there are good deals near you. So like if you're about to head out to the grocery store or the gas station, you can quickly check if there's anything worth claiming.
Okay, so this is starting to sound less like a simple cashback app and more like my own personal finance assistant.
Right. It's kind of cool. I like that analogy a lot.
I mean, it's a tool that can help you make smarter choices with your money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully save some money in the process.
But before we get too carried away, I think it's important to acknowledge that Upside isn't some like magic solution. It's not going to make us all millionaires overnight.
Right. You're absolutely right. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's about being more mindful and intentional with your spending.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
And speaking of spending responsibly, we got to remember to actually use this app responsibly, right? Like, don't go buying a bunch of stuff you don't need just because there's a cash back offer.
Exactly. Don't let those deals tempt you into overspending.
You know what I'm talking about?
That
Those restaurant offers are going to be hard to resist.
I know, right?
Mm.
It would be so easy to justify eating out more often if you know you're getting cash back.
Exactly.
But that's where discipline comes in. Stick to your budget and use Upside as a way to, enhance your savings, not as an excuse to blow your budget.
So it's all about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Between making the most of those savings, but also keeping our spending in check.
Exactly. You got it.
Now, all this talk about apps that help us save money, it makes me wonder what else is out there. What other ways can technology help us take control of our finances?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah?
What about apps that automatically find and apply coupons for us? Like, that would be amazing.
Right. Or apps that could analyze our spending habits and, give us personalized tips on how to improve our budgets.
Right. Oh, and maybe an app that could predict future expenses based on past spending patterns.
That would be so cool. I mean, who knows what the future holds? Technology is always evolving.
Totally.
Mm.
I'm excited to see what they come up with next.
Me too. But, with all the amazing potential of these apps, I think it's also important to remember that there could be some downsides too.
Yeah, definitely. We've talked about the privacy thing and the whole temptation to overspend. What other things should we be thinking about?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is the potential impact on small businesses. Like if everyone is chasing those high cashback offers, it's going to be harder for those smaller local shops to compete.
That's a really interesting point. It would be a shame if all the savings just ended up going to the big chains with the deepest pockets.
Exactly. Supporting those local businesses is so important. We don't want to lose sight of that in our quest for saving.
Agreed. And what about the cashback amounts themselves? They seem to change a lot. Is there any guarantee that Upside will always offer those competitive rates?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. I mean, the truth is there are no guarantees with these things, right?
Right. It's a dynamic market. Everything's always changing. So those cashback amounts could go up or down based on all sorts of factors.
Like, well,
Like what kind of agreements they have with different businesses, how much advertising revenue they're getting, even competition from other apps.
so basically, we should go in with realistic expectations. Upside can be a helpful tool, but it's not a sure thing.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's a good way to boost your savings, but you got to be prepared for those ups and downs.
All right, so as a savvy consumer, it sounds like it's important to do your research. Compare those offers and not just assume that Upside is always the best deal.
Definitely. Sometimes a good old-fashioned coupon or sale might be a better option.
Or maybe even a combination of different strategies.
Right, exactly. You got to be willing to mix and match.
Okay, so being a savvy consumer also means being aware of the potential downsides of any app, especially one that's connected to our finances.
Exactly. We've talked about privacy and responsible spending, but what else should we be keeping in mind?
Well, I think it's important to remember that, at the end of the day, Upside is a business.
Right. Their main goal is to make money. And they do that by, driving customers to their partner businesses and generating that advertising revenue.
So their interests might not always line up perfectly with ours as consumers.
It's definitely something to think about. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something to be aware of. They might prioritize businesses that offer them higher commissions, even if those businesses aren't always the best deal for us.
So it's like any platform, the more you understand their incentives, the better you can navigate it.
Exactly. And, one more thing to keep in mind is that while Upside seems to have pretty good customer support based on what we've seen, at least there's always the possibility of running into glitches or problems.
Yeah, like those missing transactions that Dollar Break mentioned.
Right. And, while they seem to be pretty responsive to fixing those issues, it can still be a hassle to have to contact support and wait for things to get sorted out.
So it's not always going to be a perfectly smooth experience.
No app is perfect.
True enough. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about how Upside works, the potential for savings, the importance of, you know, being responsible with our spending, and even some of those potential downsides. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I agree. I think we've presented a pretty balanced view. And now it's up to each individual to decide if Upside is the right fit for them.
Exactly. It all comes down to your own personal needs, your spending habits, and your comfort level.
For sure.
But you know what I find really exciting is the potential for apps like Upside to change the way we think about saving money.
I'm with you on that. It's pretty empowering to have these tools available to us.
And who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll have even more sophisticated apps that can personalize our saving strategies and make it even easier to find the best deals.
The possibilities are endless.
I can't wait to see what they come up with next. But for now, if you're even a little bit curious about Upside, I say go for it. Download the app, play around with it, and see if it works for you. You might be surprised at how much you can save.
Yeah. And if you do give it a try, let us know what you think. We love hearing from our listeners and, share any tips or tricks you discover along the way.
Absolutely. The more we share, the more we all learn.
Totally.
And that's what the deep dive is all about. Exploring these topics together, learning from each other, and making those informed decisions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Upside.
Absolutely. It's
You're-
been a pleasure.
Yeah, I get that. It's definitely something to think about for sure.
It is. But, one thing that really stood out to me was how Upside can actually work alongside other programs you might already be using. Like those cashback credit cards that everyone seems to have these days.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like everyone I know has at least one of those.
Right, exactly. So it's not like you have to choose one or the other. You can still use your favorite credit card for most of your purchases.
Right.
But then you can strategically use Upside when it makes the most sense. Like if you're filling up at a gas station and you see a killer offer on the app, why not take advantage?
Yeah.
It's like an extra layer of savings on top of what you're already doing.
Okay, so it's less about like replacing everything and more about being smart and strategic about when you use it.
Exactly. It's all about making your money work harder for you.
I like that. So speaking of making that money work harder, what about those referral bonuses? We talked about how you get a penny back every single time a friend fills up their tank after you refer them.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, that could really add up over time, right?
For sure.
Um,
Especially if you have friends who drive a lot or have long commutes.
Totally. Plus, it's a great way to introduce people to the app, help your friends and family save some money. It's a win-win.
Exactly. Everyone benefits.
What's funny is that I was actually pretty skeptical about Upside at first, but the more we're talking about it, the more I'm starting to see the potential.
I get it.
Yeah.
It can definitely sound too good to be true at first.
It does, but it's all about figuring out how it fits into, your own personal spending habits and your overall financial goals.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, all those YouTube reviews were great for giving us a broad overview. But I'm curious to hear about your own experience. Have you actually tried Upside yourself?
So I actually haven't yet. I was kind of waiting to get a better understanding of how it all worked, before I jumped in.
That makes sense.
But I'm definitely feeling a lot more confident about it now.
Well, that's great to hear. If you do decide to give it a try, I would say start by, just exploring the app. See what kind of offers are available in your area,
Okay.
and make sure to check for those high percentage cashback deals, especially for restaurants and grocery stores if those are things you spend money on regularly.
For sure. And what about those notifications? Should I enable those so I don't miss out on any limited time offers or bonuses?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. You can actually customize the app to send you alerts when there are good deals nearby. So if you're about to head out to the grocery store or the gas station, you can quickly check if there's anything worth claiming.
Oh, that's really convenient. So it's almost like having your own personal finance assistant.
Right. I like that analogy.
It's like a tool that can actually help you make smarter choices with your money.
Exactly.
Right.
And hopefully save you some money in the process.
But, before we get too carried away here, I think it's important to acknowledge that Upside isn't some magical solution to all of our financial problems. It's not going to make us all millionaires overnight.
You're absolutely right. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme. It's
Yeah.
more about, being mindful and intentional with your spending.
Okay, good point. And speaking of spending responsibly, we got to make sure we're actually using this app responsibly.
Right.
Like, don't go buying a bunch of stuff you don't need just because there's a cash back offer.
Exactly. Don't let those deals lead you into overspending.
Especially those restaurant deals. Those are going to be hard to resist.
I know. It would be so easy to justify eating out more often if, you're getting some cash back.
For sure. But that's where discipline comes in. Stick to your budget and use Upside as a way to enhance your savings, not as an excuse to completely blow your budget.
You got it. It's all about balance.
Right. Finding that sweet spot between, maximizing those savings, but also maintaining healthy spending habits.
Exactly.
This whole conversation about apps that can help us save money, it makes me wonder what else is out there. What other ways can technology empower us to really take control of our finances?
That's a great question. What about apps that could automatically find and apply the best coupons for us?
Right. Or apps that analyze our spending habits and give us personalized tips on how to improve our budgets.
Ooh. Or maybe an app that could predict future expenses based on your past spending patterns.
That would be amazing.
Oh.
I mean, the possibilities are endless. Technology is always evolving, so who knows what they'll come up with next.
I know. I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But, for all the amazing potential that these apps have, I think it's also important to be aware of, the potential downsides too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We've talked about privacy concerns and the temptation to overspend. What other things should we be thinking about?
Yeah, that is a good point. It would be a shame if all these savings just ended up benefiting the big corporations,
Right.
and kind of leaving those smaller businesses behind.
Definitely. Something to be mindful of for sure. And what about those cash back amounts themselves? They seem to fluctuate a lot. Is there any guarantee that Upside will always offer, those really competitive rates?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, with these kinds of things, there are never really any guarantees.
Right. It's a constantly changing market.
Hmm.
So those cashback amounts can go up or down depending on all sorts of different factors.
Like, what kind of factors are we talking about?
Well, it could depend on the agreements they have with certain businesses. It could depend on how much advertising revenue they're bringing in.
Okay.
Even competition from other apps, could play a role.
So it sounds like we need to go into this with, realistic expectations. Upside can be a great way to add to your savings, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
Right. It's a tool to help you save money, but it's not some kind of magic bullet.
Okay, so as a savvy consumer, it sounds like it's always a good idea to do your research.
Yeah,
Compare those offers and don't just assume that Upside is automatically going to be the best deal.
for sure. Sometimes you might find a better deal with a traditional coupon or a sale.
Right. Or maybe even a combination of different strategies.
Exactly. You got to be open to mixing and matching and finding what works best for you.
So we've talked about, being a savvy consumer and doing your research. But being savvy also means being aware of the potential downsides of any app, especially one that's connected to our finances, right?
Absolutely. We've already touched on those privacy concerns and the importance of being responsible with our spending. But what else should we be thinking about?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that, at the end of the day, Upside is a business. Their primary goal is to make money, and they do that by driving customers to their partner businesses and, bringing in that advertising revenue.
So basically, their interests might not always be perfectly aligned with ours as consumers?
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider.
Hmm.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to be aware of. They might prioritize certain businesses that offer them higher commissions,
Oh, I see.
even if those businesses aren't always, the best value for us.
Okay, so it's kind of like any other platform.
Yeah.
The more you understand their motivations, the better you can navigate it.
Exactly. And, one more thing to keep in mind is that while Upside seems to have generally good customer support from what we've seen, there's always the possibility of running into some glitches or issues.
Right, like those missing transactions that Dollar Break talked about. Exactly. And while they seem to be pretty responsive to fixing those problems, it can still be a bit of a hassle to have to reach out to customer support and wait for things to get sorted out.
Yeah, no one wants to deal with that.
It's definitely not ideal.
Yeah.
So basically, no app is perfect.
It's
Yeah.
true enough. All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored how Upside works, what the potential savings could be, why it's important to spend responsibly, and even some of the potential drawbacks. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I agree. I think we've presented a pretty balanced perspective.
Yeah.
And now it's really up to each individual to decide if Upside is the right fit for them.
Exactly. It all comes down to your own personal needs, your spending habits, and your comfort level. But you know what I find really exciting about all this is the potential for apps like Upside to really change the way we approach saving money.
Totally. It's pretty amazing to have these tools right at our fingertips.
And who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll have even more advanced apps that can personalize our saving strategies or help us find the absolute best deals effortlessly.
I know the possibilities are endless. It's a pretty exciting time to be a consumer.
It really is. But for now, if you're even a little bit curious about Upside, I say just give it a try. Download the app, explore it a bit, and see if it works for you. You might be pleasantly surprised at how much you can actually save.
Yeah, and if you do decide to give it a shot, definitely let us know what you think. We always love hearing from our listeners. And, maybe share any tips or tricks that you've discovered along the way.
Absolutely. The more we all share, the more we can all learn from each other.
That's the spirit.
And that's what the deep dive is all about, exploring these topics together, learning from each other, and making those informed decisions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Upside.
It's been a pleasure.